"We didn't think you'd show up," my daughter said. I replied, "I still own this house." Her face turned white as if she'd seen a ghost. Perhaps in her mind I was one. The summer breeze blew through the open door, carrying with it the scent of freshly cut grass and betrayal. Behind her, I could see shadows moving in my kitchen, where I had cooked thousands of meals for a family that now wished I would disappear. "Mom," she stammered, her manicured hand clutching the doorframe. "We were just getting things ready." Ready. That word hung between us like a guillotine. I knew exactly what they were getting ready for. The real estate agent's car parked across the street wasn't exactly subtle. Neither was the estate sale sign I'd spotted being loaded into my son-in-law's truck when I drove up. I stepped forward, my sensible shoes clicking against the porch I had swept every Sunday morning for 43 years. Claire instinctively backed up, as if my touch might burn her. My own daughter. The same little girl I had nursed through chickenpox and heartbreaks now couldn't bear to look me in the eyes. "Your father's only been gone 3 months, I said, my voice steadier than my heart. "And you're already selling everything?" The living room fell silent as I entered. My son Robert froze beside a box labeled "Donate," my husband's golf trophies gleaming inside. His wife Melissa quickly slid something into her purse. My mother's silver locket, I realized with a stab of white-hot rage. "Eleanor," my sister-in-law Martha rushed toward me, arms outstretched in a performance of concern. "We thought you were still at Golden Oaks. The doctor said I needed 2 weeks of observation after my fall." I cut her off. "Not permanent institutionalization." The weight of their collective guilt made the air heavy. Through the bay window, I could see the cherry tree George and I had planted the day we moved in. It was in full bloom, oblivious to the betrayal happening within these walls. "We have power of attorney," Robert finally said, squaring his shoulders like his father used to do when preparing for confrontation. "After what happened, we all agreed." "What happened?" I said slowly. "Was that I tripped on the garden hose that you left out after borrowing my pressure washer. What happened was that instead of helping me recover at home, you used one accident to convince my doctor I couldn't care for myself." Claire's husband Tim appeared from the kitchen, hastily tucking papers into a folder. "Probably the deed to my house. The home George and I had paid off 20 years ago. The home where I had raised 3 children, buried 2 dogs, and kissed my husband goodbye for the last time before the cancer took him." "Eleanor," Martha tried again, always the mediator. "You're 82. This house is too big for one person. We're just trying to help." I didn't miss how they'd stopped calling me Mom the moment George's heart stopped beating, as if my title had expired along with my husband. "Help?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "By dividing my possessions while I'm still breathing? By selling the home I built with my husband? That kind of help I can do without." The grandfather clock in the hallway, the one George had restored the summer of '78, chimed 3 times. The sound echoed through the house like a judge's gavel. "I'd like everyone to leave," I said quietly. "Mom, be reasonable," Claire pleaded, tears welling in eyes so like her father's. "We've already made arrangements." "I'm sure you have." But as I said, I pulled a folded document from my purse, the paper crisp and official. "I still own this house, and I'm not dead yet." I watched their faces as understanding dawned. The power of attorney they thought gave them the right to erase me had a clause George had insisted on. Knowing our children better than I had wanted to believe, I could revoke it any time I was deemed medically competent, which I now was, according to the neurologist who had assessed me yesterday, without my children's knowledge. "You can't just," Robert began. "I can. I have. Now please, get out of my house." One by one they filed past me, some angry, some ashamed, all silent. Only Tim had the audacity to start arguing about investments already made, until Claire pulled him out the door. When the last car pulled away, I locked the door and sank to the floor, my back against the solid oak George had insisted on when we built this place. "No hollow doors in our home," he'd said. "Nothing fake." If only our children had inherited that philosophy. I looked around at the half-empty shelves, the labeled boxes, the spaces where family photos had been removed from walls. They had tried to erase me, but they had forgotten one crucial fact. I was Eleanor Winters, and I was far from finished. My name is Eleanor Winters, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew what my final chapter would look like. I'd spend my remaining years in this 2-story colonial in Oak Ridge, Connecticut, tending my garden and cherishing visits from grandchildren who actually wanted to see me. I'd sit in George's recliner on Sunday afternoons, doing the New York Times crossword puzzle he never quite finished. I'd gradually fade, surrounded by memories, until it was time to join my husband. Such naive plans. I spent that first night after confronting my children sitting in my kitchen, the kitchen they'd already started packing up. Melissa had even labeled my grandmother's china, Claire's new set. The audacity still makes my hands shake. Morning came, harsh light streaming through windows that needed cleaning. I made coffee in the percolator George insisted we keep, even after I bought the fancy machine the children gave us for our anniversary. Some things don't need improving, Ellie, he'd said. He was right about the coffee, wrong about the children we raised. I'm 82, not dead. My hands have arthritis that makes buttons difficult on cold mornings. My knees protest stairs after gardening. I sometimes forget where I put my reading glasses. But my mind, the mind they so quickly decided was failing, remains sharp as the day I graduated from Mount Holyoke in 1964. I was an English professor for 38 years at the community college. I taught thousands of students, published 3 textbooks on American literature, and raised 3 children who apparently were just waiting for their father to die before dismantling everything we built. The phone rang 6 times that day. I let it go to voicemail. Martha, trying to play peacemaker. Robert, leaving a message about financial considerations. Claire, crying about how they were just trying to help themselves more like. Only my youngest, Daniel, hadn't been here for the attempted theft. He lives in Seattle, too busy with his tech career to fly home more than twice a year. He called that evening. Mom, what's going on? Claire's hysterical. I told him everything while watching a cardinal in the bird bath George installed the summer after his first heart attack. To attract a bit of life, he'd said. Jesus, Mom, Daniel sighed. You can't live alone forever. Even my absent son had been convinced I was one fall away from complete incompetence. The betrayal stung worse than the bruise still yellowing on my hip. I lived alone for a year after your father went into hospice, I reminded him. No one questioned my competence then. Silence on the line. We both knew why. George's life insurance policy and pension had still been up in the air. Now, with everything settled, I had become an inconvenience rather than a necessity. Just think about it, okay? Daniel finally said. The house is worth over $1 million now. You could get a really nice condo near Claire or assisted living with round-the-clock care. What he meant was, your worth now is only in your assets. After hanging up, I walked through each room, taking inventory of what remained and what had already been pilfered. My silver serving pieces, wedding gifts from George's parents, were gone from the dining room hutch. The antique pharmacy lamp from my study, even George's pocket watch collection had been removed from his dresser. 40 years of collecting, sorted and divided without so much as asking if I had preferences about who should receive what. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I opened George's side of the closet. Empty hangers where his suits had hung. On the shelf where he kept his hats, only dust remained. They hadn't even waited until I was actually gone before erasing him too. That night, I slept on his side of the bed for the first time. The pillow no longer smelled like him, but I pretended it did. The next morning, Martha appeared on my doorstep with a grocery bag and an apologetic smile. Peace offering, she said, holding up a bottle of the Pinot Noir I favor. I let her in because, despite everything, Martha had been my friend for 50 years. She'd stood beside me through George's illness, bringing casseroles and sitting with me during those final horrible days when morphine was the only mercy left. They're worried sick, she said, pouring us each a glass though it wasn't yet noon. Claire's convinced you'll fall again with no one to help. And I'm convinced my children were planning to commit me and sell everything I own, I replied, not touching my wine. Funny how perspectives differ. Martha had the grace to look ashamed. It got out of hand. Robert consulted a financial advisor who suggested liquidating assets before... She trailed off. Before I die? You can say it, Martha. I'm fully aware of my mortality. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her skin was spotted with the same age marks as mine, her knuckles equally swollen. We'd grown old together, she and I, from young faculty wives to widows. What are you going to do? She asked. I looked around my kitchen, at the empty spaces where appliances had been boxed up, at the faded rectangle on the wall where my family portrait had hung. I'm going to take back what's mine, I said simply, starting with firing the real estate agent they hired. Martha's eyes widened. Eleanor, Don't make this a war. They're still your children. Are they? Because children don't steal from their mother while she's recovering from a fall. She couldn't argue with that. Instead, she sipped her wine and changed the subject to her grandchildren's latest achievements. I let her talk, nodding at appropriate intervals, but my mind was elsewhere. I was calculating exactly how much time I had before they tried again, because they would try again. The house was too valuable, the potential inheritance too tempting. They'd seen me as vulnerable once. They wouldn't easily abandon that perception. After Martha left, I stood in front of the antique mirror in my foyer, one of the few pieces they hadn't yet marked for removal. The woman staring back had silver hair cut in a practical bob, lines mapping a life of laughter and grief across her face, and eyes that burned with a resolve that surprised even me. "They think you're done," I told my reflection. "Show them how wrong they are." The betrayal had started long before I found them dividing my possessions. I see that now. It began with small things. Concerned glances when I searched for a word. Offers to help with finances after George died. Suggestions that the house was too much work. Seeds planted carefully, watered with false concern, grown into a garden of deception. 2 days after I'd sent them packing, Robert showed up alone. My eldest, so like his father in appearance, but lacking George's integrity. He brought coffee and my favorite pastries from Madeline's bakery downtown. "Peace offering," he said, using Martha's exact words. I wondered if they'd coordinated their approaches. We sat on the back porch where George and I had spent countless evenings watching fireflies rise from the lawn. Robert looked uncomfortable in his father's chair. "Mom," he began, setting his coffee down untouched. "We need to discuss what happened." "Yes," I agreed. "We do." He seemed surprised by my calm. He'd expected tears or anger, emotions he could manipulate. I'd given him enough of those after George died. "The fall scared us," he continued. "You were unconscious when Claire found you. For less than a minute, according to the paramedics. Still," he leaned forward, his expression practicing sincerity. "What if it happens again when no one's around? You could lie there for days." I sipped my coffee, letting silence stretch between us. George always said silence made liars nervous. "I have Life Alert now," I finally said, patting the pendant beneath my cardigan. "And I've hired Mrs. Rodriguez from down the street to check in daily." "That's not enough," Robert insisted. "You need full-time care." "What I need," I said carefully, "is for my son to explain why my good silver is in his wife's china cabinet." His face flushed. "Melissa was just safekeeping it. And my jewelry? Is she safekeeping that too? Mom? And the paperwork I found Tim holding? The listing agreement with Coldwell Banker? Was that safekeeping as well?" Robert had the decency to look away. "We were trying to get ahead of things. You're not getting younger, and this market won't last forever." The callousness stunned me. My son, whom I had nursed through pneumonia when he was 7, whom George and I had put through law school, was discussing my death as a market opportunity. "I spoke with Darren yesterday," I said, referring to the family attorney who had been George's college roommate. He was quite surprised to hear about the power of attorney being exercised, especially since I'd met with him just last month and showed no signs of diminished capacity. Robert's head snapped up. "You went behind our backs?" The irony was breathtaking. "I maintained communication with the family attorney who's handled our affairs for 40 years. I corrected. "You went behind my back to try selling my home while I was in temporary medical care. It wasn't like that," he protested, but his eyes shifted away from mine. "Then explain the real estate agent. Explain why Claire's already hired an estate sale coordinator. Explain why your wife has my mother's jewelry." He couldn't, of course. Instead, he shifted tactics. "Dad would have wanted us to protect you. Using George against me was the final straw. My husband, who had made me promise never to leave our home unless absolutely necessary, who had spent his final coherent moments whispering, 'The oak box in my study. Remember.' Your father," I said, my voice deadly quiet, "would be ashamed of what you've done." Robert flinched as if I'd slapped him. "We were going to use the money from the house for your care," he insisted. Top-tier assisted living in Hartford, private suite, gourmet meals, daily activities. A gilded cage is still a cage, Robert. You're being unreasonable, and you're being greedy. He stood abruptly, coffee forgotten. "This isn't productive. We'll talk when you're calmer. We'll talk when you've returned everything you and your siblings have taken from this house." I countered. Every piece of silver, every photograph, every item of your father's you removed without permission. Those things were going to be ours eventually, he muttered. There it was, the truth at last. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, get out! My voice cracked like thunder in the peaceful garden. A robin startled from the bird bath, wings flashing as it escaped. After Robert left, I sat shaking in George's chair until sunset painted the sky in colors he would have appreciated. Then I went to his study. The oak box he'd mentioned sat on his bookshelf, untouched. The children had taken his first edition Hemingway and the signed baseball from the '86 World Series, but left this simple wooden box he'd made in his workshop. They'd never valued his craftsmanship. Inside, I found a sealed envelope with my name written in George's shaky hand, his writing from those final months. The letter inside was short, but clear. Ellie, if you're reading this, they've shown their true colors. I hoped I was wrong. The safety deposit box at First National contains copies of our will, medical directives, and proof of sole ownership of the house. The combination to the wall safe behind my naval portrait is your birthday. I love you. Always have. Always will. G. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears finally coming. George had known. He'd seen through our children's facade of concern to the calculations beneath. That night, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying moments from the past year. Claire insisting on being added to my checking account, just in case. Robert suggesting I sign a medical proxy, as a precaution. The way Tim had inventoried the house during Thanksgiving dinner, eyes lingering on antiques and art pieces as if appraising their value. By morning, grief had hardened into resolve. I made 2 phone calls, one to Darren, our attorney, and one to Hartford National Bank, where I'd maintained a separate account George had insisted I keep in my name only. Your children love you, he'd said, but money changes people. Keep something they don't know about. My sweet, pragmatic George. Even dying, he'd tried to protect me from the storm he saw coming. When Darren arrived that afternoon, I was ready. The documents were signed by dinner time. By nightfall, my estate plan had been completely restructured. The children who couldn't wait for me to die before claiming their inheritance would discover that patience was indeed a virtue, one worth several $1,000,000. I was 22 when I met George Winters, fresh out of college with an English degree and romantic notions about changing young minds through literature. He was 26, recently returned from Vietnam with nightmares he rarely discussed and a determination to build things that would last. Our first date was at a diner in Hartford, where the coffee was terrible, but the pie made up for it. He wore his naval dress uniform because he hadn't had time to change after a memorial service. I wore a yellow dress my mother had made. We talked until the waitress started stacking chairs on tables. I'm going to marry you, he said, walking me to my door. Not a question or a proposal, a certainty, as if he'd glimpsed our future and was simply informing me of what he'd seen. 6 months later, we stood in his parents' backyard exchanging vows under strings of white lights. My father had died the year before, so my uncle walked me down the aisle. George's mother cried. His father shook my hand firmly and said, "He's stubborn but worth it." We started with nothing, a 1-bedroom apartment in Hartford, second-hand furniture, my teacher's salary, and George's GI Bill as he studied engineering. I packed his lunches in brown paper bags with notes tucked inside. He fixed things around our building to lower our rent. We saved every spare penny for a down payment on land. Robert came first, colicky and demanding from the moment he drew breath. I taught high school during the day and graded papers while he finally slept at night. George worked construction during the day and took classes at night, passing my chair with a kiss to my forehead as we traded baby duty. We were exhausted but determined. The American dream felt tangible, just beyond our fingertips. By the time Claire arrived 3 years later, George had his degree and a position at the firm that would eventually make him partner. We had purchased 5 acres in Oak Ridge, then just a sleepy bedroom community where land was affordable. George designed our house himself, spending evenings at the kitchen table with blueprints and calculations. Too big, I worried, looking at the plans for 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. We can't afford this. We're building for the future, Ellie, he'd said, squeezing my hand. Not just for now. Construction began when I was 7 months pregnant with Daniel. I'd visit the site after school, my teacher's clothes dusty, watching our home rise from foundation to frame to walls. George worked alongside the contractors every weekend, installing fixtures, laying hardwood, building the stone fireplace that would become the heart of our home. The day we moved in, December 23, 1969, a snowstorm blanketed Connecticut. The moving truck got stuck at the bottom of our long driveway. George and our neighbors carried our furniture through knee-deep snow while I kept the children warm in the kitchen, the only room with functioning heat. That night, we slept on mattresses on the floor, the 3 children between us like chicks in a nest, while wind howled around our new home. "Is it strong enough?" I whispered to George across our sleeping children. "I built it," he answered simply. "It'll outlast us all." And so our life continued, building, growing, weathering storms both literal and figurative. The recession of the 70s that nearly cost George his job. My father-in-law's death that left George stoic during the day but sobbing in my arms at night. Robert's teenage rebellion that resulted in a midnight call from the police station. Claire's broken engagement that brought her home for 6 months of healing. Daniel's struggle with dyslexia that required tutors we could barely afford. Through it all, this house stood as our sanctuary. I planted gardens that matured alongside our children. Azaleas that bloomed the year Robert graduated from college. Hydrangeas that reached full size when Claire married. Roses that won garden club prizes the year Daniel moved to Seattle. Every nail in these walls, every floorboard, every window pane has a memory attached. George building bookshelves for my growing collection of classics. The height marks on the kitchen doorframe tracking our children's growth. The dent in the dining room wall from the Christmas. Robert tried to juggle ornaments. I look at my children now and wonder how they could forget the sacrifices we made. The vacations we didn't take to pay for their summer camps. The second car we didn't replace so Claire could have dance lessons. The retirement George delayed so Daniel could attend a specialized school for his learning differences. Perhaps that was our mistake, making it look effortless, never letting them see the nights we sat at the kitchen table, calculating how to stretch our budget another month, never telling them about the second mortgage we took during the market crash of '87 to keep Robert in law school, never complaining when we used our anniversary fund to bail Claire out of credit card debt during her divorce. They saw only the result, a paid-off home in a now prestigious neighborhood, retirement accounts, investments carefully tended over decades. What looked to them like sudden wealth was actually the slow accumulation of thousands of small sacrifices. When George was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 5 years ago, my world imploded. The prognosis was grim from the start, but he approached it with the same methodical determination he'd applied to every challenge. "We've had a good run, Ellie," he said the night we received the news, sitting on our back porch watching fireflies. 52 years is more than most get." "It's not enough," I had whispered, clutching his hand like I could physically keep him from leaving me. "It's never enough," he agreed. "But it's been everything." The children rallied initially. Robert handling medical paperwork, Claire organizing meal deliveries, Daniel flying in for extended weekends. But as months of treatment turned into years of decline, their attention fragmented. Jobs, children, their own lives pulled them away from the sick room our bedroom had become. In those final months, it was Martha who sat with me during George's morphine haze. It was our neighbors who mowed our lawn and kept our driveway clear of snow. It was George's work colleagues who visited most frequently, telling stories that made him smile even when speaking became too difficult. The children visited, of course, but increasingly their conversations in the hallway outside our bedroom turned to logistics, to finances, to arrangements. I heard them through the door as I wiped my husband's brow with cool cloths, as I spooned broth between his cracked lips, as I read him poetry when his eyes could no longer focus on books. The morning George died, I was alone with him. February sunshine streamed through our bedroom window, illuminating the silver in his hair. He hadn't spoken in days, but suddenly his eyes opened, clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Ellie," he whispered, "remember the oak box." Those were his last words. By the time the children arrived, summoned by my tearful call, he was gone. Robert handled the funeral arrangements. Claire organized the reception. Daniel gave a moving eulogy. And I simply existed, moving through grief like walking underwater, every movement slow and dreamlike. The children suggested I rest while they handled everything. In my fog of loss, I didn't notice how thoroughly they were inserting themselves into every aspect of my affairs. Until the day I fell in the garden and woke up to discover they had decided my life was effectively over too. The morning of my 72nd wedding anniversary dawned bright and crisp. An October day so perfectly reminiscent of my wedding that it felt like George had arranged it as a gift from beyond. I dressed carefully in a blue dress he had always loved, pinned his mother's cameo to my collar, and prepared to visit the cemetery. The doorbell rang as I was gathering flowers from my garden. Claire stood on the porch, looking uncomfortable. "I thought you might want company today," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I hesitated. Since our confrontation 3 weeks earlier, communication with my children had been stilted and formal, conducted primarily through Darren. But today wasn't about our conflict. It was about George. "That would be nice," I said, surprising both of us. Claire drove us to Oak Ridge Memorial Gardens, making careful small talk about her children, the weather, her husband's new project at work. Nothing about the house or my situation, as she had taken to calling my continued independence. At George's grave, I arranged my flowers in the permanent vase, zinnias and dahlias from the garden he had loved. Claire placed a small stone on top of his headstone, a tradition from his mother's Jewish heritage. "I miss him," she said softly. "Every day," I agreed. For a moment, we were just a mother and daughter united in grief. I allowed myself to hope that perhaps a corner had been turned, that my children might begin to see me as a person again, rather than an obstacle to inheritance. That illusion shattered the moment we returned home. A moving truck sat in my driveway. The front door stood open. Inside my house, a team of workers were wrapping furniture and moving blankets. Robert supervised in the living room, clipboard in hand. Melissa directed another worker in the dining room as he disassembled my grandmother's hutch. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the activity like a blade. Robert looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to forced confidence. "Mom, you're back earlier than we expected." "Clearly," I said, my voice arctic. "Again, what is this?" Claire touched my arm. "Mom, please don't get upset. This is for your own good." "My own good? You're emptying my house without my knowledge or consent, and it's for my good?" Robert stepped forward, all business. "The doctor at Golden Oaks agreed with us that your fall demonstrated diminished capacity. The power of attorney I revoked 3 weeks ago," I interrupted. "The one Darren already informed you is no longer valid. We've obtained a second medical opinion," Robert continued smoothly. "Dr. Patel at Hartford General reviewed your case. His assessment supersedes your neurologist's." Ice flooded my veins. Dr. Patel was Robert's golf partner, a man who had never examined me, never spoken to me. "Stop this," I ordered, turning to the moving crew. "This is my home. I have not authorized its contents to be removed." The workers looked uncertainly between me and Robert. "She's confused," Robert told them. "We have the paperwork. Continue." "Robert Allen Winters," I said, using the full name voice that had stopped him in his tracks since childhood. "You will order these people out of my house immediately, or I will call the police and report a theft in progress." Claire gasped. "Mom, you wouldn't." "Watch me." I pulled my cell phone from my purse. Robert nodded to the crew. "Take a break, guys." Outside, the workers filed out, leaving just my children, Melissa and me in the disrupted space of what had been my peaceful home. "This is ridiculous," Melissa snapped. "She can't live alone. She fell. Next time she could break a hip or worse." "I am standing right here," I said coldly. "Address me directly or don't speak at all." "Mom," Claire's voice was placating. "We've already paid the deposit at Shady Pines. Your apartment is ready. It's beautiful, overlooking the garden. There's a library, daily activities, people your own age. When did I become a child to be bribed with activities?" I asked. "When did I forfeit the right to determine my own life?" "When you became a danger to yourself," Robert answered bluntly. "When we found you unconscious in the garden." "I tripped," I said for what felt like the 100th time. I was momentarily stunned. I did not have a stroke, a heart attack, or dementia. "The doctor," Robert began. "Your golf buddy," I corrected, "who has never treated me." "Mom, please." Claire was near tears. "We're trying to help." "By stealing from me? By conspiring behind my back? By using the anniversary of your father's wedding to empty our home?" The last hit home. Claire flinched. Even Robert had the grace to look momentarily ashamed. We didn't realize what day it was, Claire mumbled. Of course not. Because to you, I'm already gone. Just an inconvenient ghost-haunting property you want to sell. That's not fair, Robert protested. Fair? My laugh was harsh even to my own ears. Was it fair to hire movers while taking me to the cemetery? Was it fair to have your friend sign medical documents about a woman he's never examined? Was it fair to start dividing my possessions while I was still using them? Silence fell. Outside, I could hear the moving men talking quietly, probably wondering about the family drama unfolding inside. You leave me no choice, I said finally. Get out, all of you, and take your movers with you. Or what? Robert challenged, his patience visibly fraying. Or I call the police, then Darren, then the medical board about Dr. Patel's unethical conduct. After that, I'll call the Hartford Courant. I'm sure they'd love a story about elder abuse by a prominent local attorney. Color drained from Robert's face. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I held up my phone. I have nothing to lose. You've made sure of that. The standoff lasted 10 excruciating seconds before Robert broke. Fine. We'll discuss this later, when you're more reasonable. There's nothing to discuss. This is my home. I'm staying in it. End of story. They left reluctantly, Claire in tears, Robert seething, Melissa muttering about stubborn old women. The moving truck pulled away, my furniture still inside my house where it belonged. But I knew this wasn't over. It was merely a skirmish in what would become a war. They would regroup, strategize, find another angle of attack. That night, I sat in George's study, surrounded by the shelves he had built, the books he had read, the life we had shared. I felt hollow, scraped raw by the betrayal that cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. They're still trying to erase me, I told George's photograph. They can't even wait for me to die naturally. His eyes, forever frozen in that moment the photographer had captured, seemed to hold the same steely determination I now needed. The determination that had built this house, raised our family, created our life together. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I'd found in George's address book, labeled simply Jack Navy. Jack Reynolds, a gruff voice answered. This is Eleanor Winters, I said. George's widow. A pause, then warmth filled his voice. Ellie, it's been too long. How are you holding up? Not well, I admitted. I need help, Jack. The kind George would have understood. Tell me everything, he said. And so, on the anniversary of my wedding, I began planning the battle for my survival. That night, after speaking with Jack, I slept deeply for the first time since finding my children pillaging my home. I woke before dawn, a plan crystallizing in my mind with the clarity that comes only in those liminal moments between sleep and wakefulness. I had been playing defense. It was time to attack. While the coffee brewed, in George's old percolator, not the fancy machine that had mysteriously disappeared in my children's initial raid, I made a list. Names, dates, account numbers, every resource at my disposal, every weapon in my arsenal. George's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. Remember who you are, Ellie. Who was I? Not just the fragile widow my children had decided to erase. I had been Eleanor Margaret Sullivan before I became Eleanor Winters, graduated top of my class, earned my master's while raising 3 children, taught literature to thousands of students over 4 decades, managed our household finances when George worked 60-hour weeks establishing his firm. I had navigated Medicare paperwork, negotiated with insurance companies during George's illness, and maintained our investments even as grief threatened to drown me. I was not helpless. I had simply allowed my children's perception of me to become my reality. No more. By noon, I had made a dozen phone calls. By evening, I had appointments lined up for the coming week. But first, I needed to secure my position. The next morning, I drove myself to Hartford National Bank. The branch manager, Mr. Phillips, had known George and me for 30 years. His face registered surprise when I requested access to our safety deposit box. Mrs. Winters, he said warmly, we don't often see you without Robert these days. Interesting. So Robert had been accompanying me on errands I had no memory of. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I prefer to handle some matters personally, I said smoothly. In the privacy of the viewing room, I opened the box George had mentioned in his letter. Inside lay exactly what he'd promised. Copies of our will, the original with Darren, medical directives, property deeds, and a sealed envelope labeled, Eleanor, open only if necessary. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter from George, dated 2 weeks before his death. My dearest Ellie, if you're reading this, then what I feared has come to pass. Our children have shown you who they truly are when money is involved. I've watched them during my illness, seen the calculations behind their concern, noticed the inventory and glances at our possessions, overheard conversations they thought beyond my hearing. I wish I could have been wrong. I wish I could believe they'd care for you as selflessly as you've cared for me. But I've made provisions in case I'm right. The account at First Maritime Credit Union contains $250,000. Only you can access it. The children don't know it exists. The safety deposit key in this envelope opens box 713 at Hartford Central Bank. Inside is jewelry my mother left specifically to you, not to be passed down until after your death. Most importantly, our house is in your name only. Despite Robert's legal maneuvering last year, which I allowed to keep peace, the property transfer was never completed. Check the deed enclosed. Use these resources wisely, my love. Don't let them bully you out of the home we built. Don't let them erase the life we created. Remember, you were magnificent before you met me, magnificent during our years together, and you will be magnificent without me. All my love, forever. George. Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't tears of grief. For the first time since George's death, I felt him truly with me, his foresight protecting me even now, his love sustaining me beyond the grave. That afternoon, I visited the second bank. Just as George had written, box number 713 contained jewelry I'd thought long gone. His mother's diamond earrings, her sapphire pendant, the pearl necklace his grandmother had brought from the old country. I'd assumed they'd been given to Claire years ago, as Robert had told me during one of my confused days after George's funeral. Another lie unraveled. My next stop was Darren's office. His secretary's eyes widened when I arrived without an appointment, but she ushered me in immediately. Eleanor, Darren stood, genuine warmth in his greeting. I was going to call you. I received the most peculiar request from Robert this morning. Let me guess, I said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Something about my mental competency. Darren's expression confirmed my suspicion. He wanted me to file paperwork for an emergency competency hearing, claimed you were having paranoid delusions, refusing medical care. And what did you tell him? That I would need to speak with you directly. Darren leaned forward. Eleanor, what's happening? Last month we updated your estate plan. You were sharp as a tack. My children are trying to declare me incompetent so they can sell my house and commit me to assisted living, I said bluntly. They've already tried moving my furniture out once. Darren's bushy eyebrows shot up. That's disturbing. It's theft, is what it is. Indeed. He steepled his fingers thoughtfully. What would you like me to do? First, confirm what George told me, that the house is solely in my name. Darren nodded, typing rapidly on his computer. Yes. George came to me before he died, concerned about some paperwork Robert had pressured him to sign. We made sure the deed remained in your name only. Relief flooded me. Second, I want to revise my will again. You just did last month, he reminded me. That was before my children tried to steal my home while I was visiting their father's grave. Darren's expression hardened. I see. What changes did you have in mind? As I outlined my new estate plan, Darren took notes without judgment. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. It's unorthodox, he said finally, but perfectly legal. I'll have the paperwork ready tomorrow. On the drive home, I felt lighter than I had in months. The fog of grief and betrayal was lifting, replaced by clarity of purpose. The house stood waiting, golden in the afternoon sun. I walked through each room slowly, reacquainting myself with the space that had been my sanctuary for over 5 decades. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I opened George's nightstand drawer. Inside lay his reading glasses, a half-finished book of crossword puzzles, and his pocket watch. I wound the watch carefully, listening to its steady tick. Time moving forward, life continuing. In his study, I sat at his desk and pulled out fresh stationery. Dear Robert, Claire and Daniel, I began. The words flowed easily now, free of the hurt and confusion that had paralyzed me. I outlined exactly what would happen next. On my terms, not theirs. No accusations, no emotional appeals, just facts, consequences, and choices. When I finished, I addressed 3 envelopes and applied stamps. These messages wouldn't be delivered electronically, where they could be ignored or deleted. My children would receive my terms the old-fashioned way, in black and white, impossible to misconstrue. That evening, I called Jack again. "It's done," I told him. "Phase 1 complete. George would be proud," he said. "What's next?" "Now," I said, looking out at the garden where fireflies were just beginning to emerge. "We wait for them to show their hand." I slept in the center of the bed that night, no longer clinging to George's side as if trying to preserve his presence. He was with me in a different way now, in my renewed strength, in my determination, in the plans we had made together. The house creaked and settled around me, its familiar sounds a lullaby. This was where I belonged. This was where I would stay, and anyone who tried to take it from me would regret it. The letters arrived at my children's homes on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, my phone was ringing incessantly. First Robert, then Claire, finally Daniel calling from Seattle. I let each call go to voicemail, listening to their increasingly agitated messages with detached interest. "Mom, we need to discuss this immediately." Robert, clipped and controlling. "Mom, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening." Claire, tearful and confused. "Mom, I'm booking a flight home. This isn't like you." Daniel, concerned but with an edge of accusation. I prepared for their arrival like a general fortifying defenses. Jack had stayed with me the night before, sleeping in the guest room. At 78, he still carried himself with military precision, his white hair cropped short, his blue eyes sharp. George's oldest friend from the Navy, he had been the best man at our wedding and godfather to Robert. "You sure about this, Ellie?" he asked over breakfast. "Not too late to soften your approach." I buttered my toast deliberately. They didn't give me the courtesy of consultation before trying to sell my home. Why should I consult them about my decisions? Jack nodded, understanding in his weathered face. "George always said you were the backbone of the family." "George isn't here to be the backbone anymore," I said, so I had to grow a new one. Robert arrived first, as I knew he would. Always punctual, always prepared, always certain he was right. His BMW pulled into the driveway at precisely 10 a.m. He didn't notice Jack's truck parked on the street. "Mother," he said when I opened the door, the formality a bad sign. He stopped short seeing Jack at the kitchen table. "Uncle Jack? What are you doing here?" "Supporting your mother," Jack said mildly, not rising. "Coffee?" Robert ignored him, turning to me. "We need to talk privately." "Anything you have to say can be said in front of Jack," I replied. "He's family." "This is about family matters," Robert insisted. "Yes," I agreed. "It certainly is." Claire arrived before the standoff could escalate, her SUV screeching into the driveway. She burst through the door in a cloud of expensive perfume and barely contained panic. "Mom, what is this letter? What do you mean you're changing your will? Why is Uncle Jack here?" "Sit down," I said calmly. "We'll wait for Daniel's flight to get in." "Daniel's coming?" Robert looked genuinely surprised. "You got him to leave his precious tech job?" "Unlike some," Jack said pointedly. "The boy drops everything when his mother calls." Robert flushed but said nothing. We waited in tense silence. Claire fidgeting with her phone, Robert standing stiffly by the fireplace, Jack and I calmly drinking coffee. At noon exactly, Daniel's Uber pulled up. He looked exhausted, having clearly taken a red-eye from Seattle. "Mom." He hugged me tightly. "What's going on? Your letter scared me half to death." Once we were all seated in the living room, the children on the sofa, Jack in George's recliner, me in my wingback chair by the window, I began. 3 weeks ago, I discovered the 3 of you attempting to sell my home and divide my possessions without my knowledge or consent, I said without preamble. When confronted, you claimed concern for my welfare. When that failed, you attempted to have me declared incompetent, again, without my knowledge. "Mom, that's not," Claire began. I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. 2 weeks ago, while I visited your father's grave on what would have been our 72nd anniversary, Robert arranged for movers to empty this house. Again, without my knowledge or consent. That was poorly timed," Robert admitted. "But, poorly timed?" Jack interjected. "It was elder abuse, son." Robert's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, this doesn't concern you." "George made it my concern," Jack replied, his voice hardening, "right before he died." This silenced the room. All three children stared at Jack. "What are you talking about?" Daniel finally asked. "Before your father died," I continued, "he made certain provisions to protect me. From you." I removed the documents from the folder beside me. One by one, I laid them on the coffee table. The deed to this house, in my name only. The updated will he signed 2 weeks before his death. Bank statements from accounts you don't know about. And this, I placed George's letter, protected now in a plastic sleeve, atop the pile. Your father's assessment of what might happen after he was gone. He hoped he was wrong. He wasn't. Claire reached for the letter, but I pulled it back. "You can read it when I'm finished." "Mom?" Daniel leaned forward, his expression troubled. "We were worried about you. The fall was a fall," I said flatly. I tripped over the garden hose and was stunned for less than a minute. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was alert and oriented. "The doctor said," Robert began. "Dr. Lewis said I should be observed for signs of concussion, which is standard procedure for anyone my age after a fall. He discharged me after 2 days with a clean bill of health. You told Golden Oaks I needed extended rehabilitation. You told my neighbors I was confused. You told my bank I couldn't manage my accounts." Silence fell again, heavier this time. "But that's not why I've called you here," I continued. "I've called you to inform you of changes to my estate plan, which took effect yesterday." Robert straightened, lawyer instincts engaged. "What changes?" "This house and everything in it now belongs to a trust. I am the primary beneficiary during my lifetime. Upon my death, the house will be sold, and the proceeds will go to the Oak Ridge Community College Scholarship Fund in your father's name." "You can't do that," Claire gasped. "I can, and I have," I replied evenly. "My liquid assets have been similarly restructured. A portion has been set aside for my care, managed by Darren and Jack, not by any of you. The remainder will be distributed upon my death, but with conditions." "Conditions?" Daniel echoed. "Each of you will receive your inheritance only after completing 5 years of monthly volunteer service at Golden Palms Retirement Community, the facility you were so eager to commit me to. You'll need to sign in, complete your hours, and be evaluated by the volunteer coordinator. Any month missed resets the 5-year clock." Robert shot to his feet. "This is extortion. This is consequences," Jack corrected. "Something you appear unfamiliar with. You've been poisoning her mind against us," Robert accused Jack. "Your actions poisoned her mind," Jack replied calmly. "I merely gave her a safe place to process her grief, both for George and for the children she thought she had." Claire began to cry. "Mom, we love you. We were trying to help." "By stealing from me?" I asked quietly. "By conspiring behind my back? By using my moment of physical vulnerability to seize control of my life?" "We were going to use the money from the house for your care," Daniel insisted. "My care? Or for the vacation homes you've all been discussing? The investments? The private schools for grandchildren?" "Yes." I noted their shocked expressions. "Martha has been keeping me informed. She has quite the guilty conscience about her role in your little scheme." I stood, smoothing my slacks with steady hands. "You have choices now. You can contest the trust, which will trigger the release of evidence of your attempted elder abuse to the relevant authorities. You can abandon your inheritance entirely, or you can accept my terms, which are far more generous than your actions deserve." "Dad would never have wanted this," Robert said, a last desperate appeal. I slid George's letter across the table. "Read it, then tell me what your father would have wanted." The room fell silent as they passed the letter between them, faces paling as they read George's precise assessment of their character, his disappointment laid bare in his own handwriting. Claire broke first, sobbing into her hands. Daniel stared out the window, tears streaming down his face. Only Robert maintained his composure, though a muscle ticked in his jaw. "This doesn't seem like Dad," he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Your father saw everything," I said simply, "even when you thought he was too ill to notice." "What do you want from us?" Daniel asked, his voice hollow. "Besides the volunteer hours? I want what I've always wanted. My children in my life, respecting my autonomy, valuing me for who I am rather than what I own." I met each of their eyes in turn, but I no longer need that to survive. Jack rose, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. "Your mother has friends, a support system, and resources you know nothing about," he told them. "She doesn't need your help, but she's offering you a chance to earn back her trust and your inheritance. And if we refuse, Robert challenged. Then you'll have chosen money over family, just as your father feared, I said simply. And you'll get neither. I watched the calculations behind their eyes, the weighing of options, the reckoning with consequences. In that moment, I saw them clearly, not as the children I had raised, but as the adults they had chosen to become. And for the first time since George died, I was no longer afraid of being alone. After my children left, Claire in tears, Daniel confused, Robert coldly furious, the house felt different, lighter somehow, as if a long festering wound had finally been lanced. You did well, Ellie, Jack said, helping me clear the coffee cups. George would be proud. George wouldn't have let it get this far, I replied. He would have seen it coming sooner. He did see it coming, Jack reminded me gently. Hence the letter, the separate accounts, the trust preparations. I nodded, gazing out at the garden where autumn had painted my hydrangeas bronze and burgundy. What happens now, Jack? Now, he said. We prepare for the counterattack, because it's coming. And it did, faster than even Jack anticipated. The next morning, a sleek town car delivered a woman in an expensive suit to my door. She introduced herself as Vanessa Coleman, elder care specialist and mediator. Your children have asked me to facilitate a conversation about your living arrangements, she explained, handing me an embossed business card. They're concerned about recent decisions you've made. I'm sure they are, I replied, not inviting her in. Unfortunately, I'm not interested in mediation. Her professional smile didn't falter. Mrs. Winters, it's quite common for families to experience friction during this transition period. My role is simply to ensure everyone's needs are being met. My needs are being met quite adequately in my own home, I said. Good day, Ms. Coleman. She placed her foot in the door as I began to close it. I should mention that I've been retained not only as a mediator, but as a potential expert witness should your children feel it necessary to pursue legal channels. The threat was clear, if elegantly delivered. Are you threatening me with a competency hearing, Ms. Coleman? She maintained her pleasant demeanor. I'm merely outlining possible scenarios that could be avoided with productive dialogue. I see. I smiled thinly. In that case, any further communication should go through my attorney, Darren Matthews at Foster, Phillips & Matthews. I believe you know the firm? Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Perhaps concern. Darren's firm was one of the most prestigious in Connecticut. Of course. She withdrew her foot, handing me another card. Should you reconsider, my direct line is on the back. I waited until her car pulled away before calling Jack and Darren. Within an hour, we were seated around my dining room table with a third person, Dr. Miranda Chen, a geriatric psychiatrist from Yale New Haven Hospital. This is textbook isolation and control tactics, Dr. Chen said, after I described my children's actions and the visit from the mediator. They're attempting to establish a narrative of your incompetence while simultaneously limiting your access to outside support. Can they force a competency hearing? I asked. Darren shook his head. They can try, but we've established significant counter-evidence. Your neurologist's recent assessment, your amended estate documents, which required competency to execute, your detailed records of their attempts to sell your property without consent. Plus, Jack added, the mediator showed her hand too early. She confirmed they're planning legal action, which gives us time to prepare. Dr. Chen nodded. I'd like to conduct a full cognitive assessment today, which we'll document thoroughly. When, not if, they file for guardianship, we'll have contemporary evidence of your capacity. The assessment took 3 hours. I named presidents backward, drew clock faces, recalled word lists, solved math problems in my head, and explained complex ethical scenarios. By the end, Dr. Chen was smiling. Mrs. Winters, you score in the upper percentiles for cognitive function regardless of age. I'd be happy to testify to your competency should it become necessary. It will, Jack said grimly. Robert won't give up easily. He was right. The next day, I received formal notice of a guardianship hearing scheduled for the following month. Robert, as the petitioner, cited my sudden and irrational changes to long-standing estate plans and paranoid behaviors including unfounded accusations against family members. Darren was unsurprised. Standard approach. They're claiming your changes to the will demonstrate diminished capacity in themselves. Can they win? I asked. Not with our evidence, he reassured me, but they can make it unpleasant. Unpleasant was an understatement. Within days, my neighbors began receiving calls from Claire, expressing concerns about my welfare. My garden club president phoned, awkwardly explaining that perhaps I should take a break from hosting meetings until my situation was resolved. My church circle received a group email from Robert detailing my declining health, information promptly forwarded to me by Martha, whose guilt had evolved into righteous indignation on my behalf. "They're trying to isolate you," Dr. Chen explained during her follow-up visit. "Create the appearance of decline by cutting off your social connections." "It won't work," I said with more confidence than I felt. "I've lived in this town for 50 years. People know me." But isolation wasn't their only tactic. Daniel appeared on my doorstep the following weekend, alone and seemingly contrite. "Mom, can we talk? Just you and me?" Against Jack's advice, I let him in. Daniel had always been my sensitive child, the peacemaker. If any of them could be reasoned with, it would be him. We sat in the kitchen where I'd bandaged his scraped knees and helped with science projects decades ago. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "I don't agree with what Robert's doing," he began. "The guardianship petition, the calls to your friends, it's wrong." Hope flickered. "Then help me stop it, Daniel." He fidgeted with his coffee mug. "I will. But Mom, you have to understand how this looks. You changed your will suddenly, cutting us out, not cutting you out," I corrected. "Adding conditions, punitive conditions," he countered. "After decades of a different plan. Then you bring in Dad's old Navy buddy, who nobody's heard from in years, and suddenly he's co-trustee of your estate." I felt the trap closing. This wasn't reconciliation. It was reconnaissance. "Jack was your father's best friend for 60 years, I said carefully. "He's been visiting regularly since before your father died. You didn't notice because you rarely visit yourself." Daniel flushed. "I have a demanding job, Mom. I can't just drop everything to fly cross-country every month." "Yet you dropped everything when Robert told you about the changed will," I observed. His expression confirmed my suspicion. This wasn't about concern for me. It was about protecting his inheritance. "Daniel," I said gently, "why are you really here?" He sighed, dropping the pretense. "Robert thinks we can settle this out of court. No guardianship hearing, no contested will. You restore the original estate plan, and in exchange, we guarantee you can stay in the house until it becomes medically impossible. Until I'm truly incapacitated, you mean? At which point, who determines that? Robert? Dr. Patel, his golf partner who's never examined me? A neutral doctor," Daniel insisted. "And I'd be involved too, not just Robert." I studied my youngest son's face, the boy who'd climbed into my lap for comfort well into his teens, now a man negotiating terms for my eventual surrender. "The answer is no," I said finally. "I'm not bargaining for rights I already have." Daniel's expression hardened slightly. "Mom, if this goes to court, it gets ugly. Medical evaluations, witnesses to any moment of confusion or forgetfulness. Do you really want that? Are you threatening me, Daniel?" He looked genuinely shocked. "No, I'm trying to protect you from Robert's scorched earth approach, by suggesting I surrender preemptively, by finding a compromise everyone can live with." I stood, signaling our conversation was over. "I'm already living with a solution that protects my interests. If you and your siblings want to publicly challenge my competency to secure your inheritance sooner, that's your choice. But don't pretend it's for my benefit." After Daniel left, I called Jack. They tried the soft approach, Daniel as peacemaker, and when that failed, I suspect the scorched earth is next. Jack arrived that evening with reinforcements. His daughter Susan, a retired nurse, and her husband Bill, who had been George's colleague at the engineering firm. Over dinner, we finalized our strategy. "We document everything," Susan said. "Every interaction, every call, every seemingly casual visit, record dates, times, what was said. We secure your support network," Bill added. "I'll speak to the men from George's firm. Susan can talk to your church circle. We make sure everyone understands what's happening, and we prepare for the hearing," Jack concluded. "Character witnesses, medical experts, evidence of your children's previous attempts to sell your home without consent." "It feels like going to war with my own children," I said quietly. Jack covered my hand with his. "Ellie, they declared war when they tried to sell your home out from under you. We're just making sure you don't fight unarmed." That night, I sat in George's study sorting through old photographs. My children's school portraits, family vacations, graduation ceremonies. The story of a family that had somehow fractured beyond recognition. Had the seeds always been there? The entitlement, the calculation, the willingness to sacrifice my autonomy for their convenience? Or had I somehow failed as a mother, raising children who could look at me and see only a declining asset rather than a person? I don't know what to do. George, I whispered to the empty room. For once, no internal voice answered. This battle was mine alone to fight. I placed the photos back in their album and instead pulled out my lesson plans from my final year of teaching. Literature had always been my refuge, my guide. Perhaps it still could be. Among the yellowed pages, I found my notes on King Lear, the tragedy of a father who discovers too late the true nature of his children. I had taught it as a warning about flattery and false love, about the dangers of equating inheritance with affection. Now, I saw it from Lear's perspective, the shock of betrayal by those you thought closest to you, the humiliation of being deemed obsolete while still living, the rage at having your identity reduced to what you own rather than who you are. But unlike Lear, I would not rage impotently against the storm. I would not be driven into madness and death by my children's betrayal. I closed the lesson plans and instead opened my computer. With steady hands, I began typing a detailed account of everything that had transpired since my fall. Every conversation, every action, every betrayal, large and small. My children wanted a story about an elderly widow in decline. I would give the court a different narrative entirely, one of calculated avarice disguised as concern, of attempted theft masked as care. And unlike Lear, I would prevail. The week before the guardianship hearing, I requested a family meeting. Not at my home, neutral territory was essential, but at Darren's office, with Jack and Dr. Chen present. To my surprise, all 3 children agreed to attend. The conference room at Foster, Phillips, and Matthews exuded quiet power, walnut paneling, leather chairs, discreet lighting that flattered everyone present. I had dressed carefully in a tailored navy suit that had been George's favorite, pearl earrings, subtle makeup. Nothing about my appearance suggested infirmity or confusion. Robert arrived with his own attorney, a sharp-faced woman whose reputation for aggressive elder law cases preceded her. Claire came alone, looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. Daniel had flown in that morning, his expression unreadable as he took the seat farthest from me. "Thank you all for coming," Darren began. "Mrs. Winters has requested this meeting as a final opportunity to resolve this matter privately before our court date next week." Robert's attorney, Ms. Hargrove according to her business card, leaned forward. "We appreciate the gesture, but our position remains unchanged. Mrs. Winters has demonstrated erratic behavior and vindictive changes to her estate plan that suggest diminished capacity." "Interesting theory," Dr. Chen commented mildly, "though it contradicts multiple cognitive assessments I've conducted over the past month, all showing Mrs. Winters to be in the superior range for her age cohort." "With respect, Doctor," Ms. Hargrove countered, "cognitive tests in controlled settings don't reflect real-world judgment." "Perhaps not," Darren interjected smoothly, "but attempted property theft certainly reflects on the petitioner's judgment." He slid folders across the table, one to each of my children and Ms. Hargrove. "What's this?" Robert demanded. "Evidence," I said, speaking for the first time. "Documentation of your attempts to sell my home without consent, medical opinions from a doctor who never examined me, removal of my personal property without permission, and systematic efforts to isolate me from my social network." Claire flipped through her folder, color draining from her face. "Mom, this isn't what, Claire?" I asked quietly. "Isn't what it looks like, because it looks like elder abuse. It looks like financial exploitation. It looks like 3 adult children conspiring to seize control of their mother's assets by having her declared incompetent." Daniel closed his folder, visibly disturbed. "Where did you get all this?" "Your father taught me to keep records," I replied. "Every email you thought was deleted. Every conversation you assumed I'd forget. Every call to my friends spreading concerns about my condition. All documented." Robert remained unmoved. "This changes nothing. The court will recognize that—" "The court," Jack interrupted, "will see exactly what this is. I've seen combat in 2 wars, son, but I've never seen anything as dishonorable as what you've done to your mother." Ms. Hargrove tapped manicured nails on the table. "Emotional appeals aside, the issue before the court will be Mrs. Winters' capacity to manage her affairs, the drastic changes to her estate plan, were not drastic, Darren corrected. They were responsive to new information. Specifically, the discovery that her children were attempting to sell her home without permission during her temporary medical care. He slid another document across the table. This is a statement from the neurologist who examined Mrs. Winters after her fall, confirming she showed no signs of cognitive impairment. This directly contradicts claims made in the guardianship petition. And this, Dr. Chen added, placing her own report before them, is my comprehensive cognitive assessment, which will be entered into evidence. It shows Mrs. Winters scoring above average in all domains, with particular strengths in executive function, the very area that governs financial decision-making. Robert conferred quietly with Ms. Hargrove before responding. These assessments are subjective and potentially biased. Our expert has never met me, I finished for him, has never examined me, has simply reviewed cherry-picked incidents provided by you. Mom, Claire's voice trembled. We really were worried after your fall. You were confused, disoriented, for less than 5 minutes, I corrected. As is normal after any impact to the head, the paramedics' report confirms I was alert and oriented by the time they arrived. Then why did you go to Golden Oaks? Daniel asked. Because Dr. Lewis recommended 48 hours of observation, which is standard protocol for anyone my age after a fall, I explained patiently. What wasn't standard was you three telling Golden Oaks I needed extended rehabilitation when Dr. Lewis had already cleared me for home. Silence fell across the table as this sank in. That's not, Claire began, then stopped, looking uncertainly at Robert. Not what? I pressed. Not how you remember it. Then perhaps you should review the discharge papers in your folder, showing I was cleared to return home 2 days after admission. Ms. Hargrove attempted to regain control. Mrs. Winters, regardless of these disputed details, your children have legitimate concerns about your living situation. The house is too large for a woman your age, the maintenance too demanding. The house is my home. I cut her off. Not an investment property. Not an inheritance to be liquidated before I'm dead. My home, which I am fully capable of maintaining with appropriate help that I arrange and pay for myself. I turned to my children directly. This meeting isn't to negotiate. It's to give you one last opportunity to withdraw your petition before we go to court. Or what? Robert challenged. Or I will be forced to defend myself with all available evidence, I said simply, including filing a counterclaim of attempted elder abuse. The room went utterly silent. You wouldn't, Claire whispered. I don't want to, I agreed. I'd prefer not to publicly document how my children tried to steal my home and commit me to an institution against medical advice. I'd prefer not to have your actions scrutinized by the Connecticut Bar Association. I looked pointedly at Robert. Or by the medical licensing board. My gaze shifted to Claire's husband, a doctor who had supported Robert's plans. Or by your employer, Daniel, who might question the ethics of an executive involved in elder exploitation. Daniel paled. Mom, that would destroy us. Yes, I said simply. It would. This is blackmail, Robert sputtered. This is consequence, I corrected. Something you seem to have avoided your entire life. Ms. Hargrove leaned over to confer with Robert, their whispered conversation tense and urgent. Finally, she straightened. We need time to consider our position, she said professionally. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow, Darren replied. After that, we begin final preparations for the hearing, including subpoenaing witnesses. As everyone gathered their papers to leave, I remained seated. One by one, my children filed past me, Robert rigid with anger, Claire weeping silently, Daniel conflicted and shaken. Only when the door closed behind them did I allow my own hands to tremble. You did beautifully, Eleanor, Dr. Chen said warmly. They'll withdraw the petition, Darren predicted. Ms. Hargrove knows they have no case, but they'll never forgive me, I said softly. Jack squeezed my shoulder gently. Ellie, you can't lose what you never had. Their conditional love wasn't worth the price they were asking. The next afternoon, Darren called to confirm that the guardianship petition had been withdrawn. The hearing was canceled. I had won the battle. But as I sat alone in the home that remained mine, victory felt hollow. I had kept my freedom, my autonomy, my dignity, but I had lost my children, or rather, discovered they had been lost to me long before, perhaps from the moment they began seeing me as an asset rather than a mother. That evening, The doorbell rang. On my porch stood Daniel, alone and carrying a small box. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice subdued. I hesitated, then stepped aside. In the living room, he set the box on the coffee table and opened it carefully. Inside was George's pocket watch collection, the one I'd noticed missing after their attempted clearing of the house. "I took these the day after Dad died," he confessed. "Not because I wanted to sell them, because I couldn't bear the thought of anyone else having them." Tears filled his eyes. "He taught me to tell time on these watches, every Sunday morning, winding them together while you made pancakes." I sat beside him, not touching, but close. "I remember. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive us. What we did was unforgivable." He wiped his eyes roughly. "But I want you to know I'm withdrawing from the whole thing. The guardianship, the will contest, all of it. And I'll do the volunteer hours at Golden Palms, whether you reinstate my inheritance or not." "Why?" I asked simply. "Because Dad would be ashamed of me," he said, his voice breaking. "And because I'm ashamed of myself." I looked at my youngest son, genuinely contrite, genuinely broken by the recognition of what he'd almost done. And I saw, for the first time since George died, a glimmer of the child I had raised rather than the stranger he had become. "The volunteer hours weren't a punishment, Daniel," I said softly. "They were a lesson, about seeing elderly people as human beings, not burdens, about understanding what you were so eager to condemn me to." He nodded, unable to speak. "I don't know if Claire and Robert will learn that lesson," I continued, "but I'm glad you're trying." We sat together in silence as evening shadows lengthened across the living room, where he had once played with toy cars, where he had opened Christmas presents, where he had announced his acceptance to Stanford decades ago. "I miss Dad," he finally said. "So do I replied. "Every day." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. A year has passed since the battle for my home, my autonomy, and ultimately my dignity. The seasons have cycled through, autumn's blaze giving way to winter's starkness, then spring's renewal, and now summer's lushness. My garden has followed nature's rhythm regardless of human drama, the perennials George and I planted decades ago returning with faithful persistence. I'm still here, in the home we built, where I intend to remain as long as possible. But much has changed, both within these walls and within my heart. Daniel has kept his word. Every month, he flies from Seattle to Connecticut for his weekend volunteer shift at Golden Palms. Initially awkward and uncertain around the residents, he's gradually developed genuine relationships with several of them. Last month, he helped organize a technology workshop, teaching interested seniors to use tablets for video calls with distant family. "They're not that different from my coworkers," he admitted during a recent dinner at my house. "Same stories, same jokes, same desire for connection, just more wrinkles. That's progress, I suppose." Claire took longer to come around. For months after the withdrawn guardianship petition, she avoided me entirely. No calls, no visits, not even cards for my birthday or Christmas. Martha reported that she was processing her feelings, which I translated as nursing her wounded pride. Then, in April, her eldest daughter Jessica became engaged. Tradition dictated that the bride should wear my mother's veil, which had been passed down through generations. Claire appeared on my doorstep, tearful and hesitant. "Mom," she began, then faltered. "Jessica is getting married. She was hoping, that is, if you're willing." I invited her in, served tea in the china cup she had once attempted to claim as her own, and listened as 6 months of bottled emotions spilled out. Resentment, shame, justification, and finally, grudging recognition. "Robert convinced us it was for your own good," she explained, "that the fall was just the beginning, that you'd hurt yourself badly if left alone. And the house? My possessions? Were those for my own good too?" She couldn't meet my eyes. "Robert said the house would sell for enough to keep you in the best facility for years, that we'd be managing your assets more efficiently than you could, and you believed that was your right?" "I believed you needed protection," she said defensively, then sighed. "But yes, I also believed we deserved compensation for taking care of you." The admission hung between us, its naked self-interest finally exposed to light. "I see," I said simply. "Mom, I know now how wrong that was." Claire twisted her wedding ring nervously. "Daniel's been talking to us about Golden Palms, about the people there, how most of them didn't choose to be there. How different it is from living in your own home. I said nothing, letting her continue. I've started volunteering too, she admitted. Not because of the will, because I needed to understand what we almost did to you. I poured more tea, giving myself time to process this revelation. And do you understand? I'm beginning to, she said softly. And I'm sorry, Mom. So sorry. The veil was given, the wedding attended. Our relationship remains fragile, a delicate construction of tentative conversations and careful boundaries. But it's a beginning. Robert remains estranged. His pride, always his fatal flaw, prevents him from acknowledging wrongdoing. His wife Melissa called once, suggesting a fresh start without rehashing the past, which I understood as a request to pretend nothing had happened. I declined. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt without first acknowledging the arson. As for me, I've created a new life in the shell of the old one. Jack visits weekly, his friendship a comfort that occasionally hints at something more, though neither of us rushes toward definition. At our age, companionship itself is precious enough. I've rejoined my garden club, resumed hosting my church circle, and started teaching a literature course at the community center. My students, mostly retired professionals seeking intellectual stimulation, don't question my competence or suggest I'm too old to analyze Woolf or Morrison. Last month, I established the George Winters Memorial Scholarship at the community college where I taught for so many years. The irony doesn't escape me. The money that my children so eagerly anticipated now funds education for strangers. But George would approve. He always believed in investing in potential. The house itself has adapted to my changing needs without surrendering its character. Jack installed handrails in strategic locations. Susan helped reorganize the kitchen so essentials are within easy reach. I hired Mrs. Rodriguez's nephew to maintain the yard George once tended with such care. These are concessions to age, not surrenders to it. The difference matters. Sometimes in the evening, I sit in George's study surrounded by the books we both loved, the photographs of our life together, the artifacts of our shared journey. I imagine him watching over me, pleased that I fought for the home he built, satisfied that I found the strength he always knew I possessed. You were right, I tell his photograph sometimes, about so many things, about our children's true characters, about the importance of preparation, about the need to protect myself even from those who should have protected me. But he was wrong about one thing. I didn't need his provisions, his hidden accounts, his contingency plans to survive without him. They helped, certainly. But what saved me wasn't George's foresight. It was my own resilience, cultivated over 8 decades of living. The woman who faced down her children in Darren's conference room wasn't George's creation. She was mine. Forged through years of teaching obstinate students, managing a household through economic uncertainties, navigating the healthcare system during George's illness, and finally, confronting the ultimate betrayal from those I had loved unconditionally. I am Eleanor Winters, widow, mother, former professor, gardener, survivor. I am 83 years old, and I am far from finished. Yesterday, I received a letter from Golden Palms. Daniel has been organizing a weekly literary discussion group for residents. Claire has been helping with art therapy sessions. They're learning, slowly, to see the elderly as people with ongoing stories, rather than concluding chapters. This wasn't the family reconciliation I would have chosen. There are still empty chairs at my holiday table, still painful absences in family photographs. The trust remains in place, the conditions unchanged. Some lessons require reinforcement. But there is peace now where there was once betrayal, understanding where there was deception. And for me, there is freedom. To live in the home I love, to make my own choices, to define the final chapters of my life on my own terms. Outside my window, fireflies rise from the garden George and I planted together. The house creaks and settles around me, solid and secure. Somewhere, I imagine George is smiling. "We didn't think you'd show up," my daughter said that day, finding me on the doorstep of what they thought was no longer my home. "I still own this house," I had replied. I was right about the house, but more importantly, I was right about myself. I still owned my story, my autonomy, my worth beyond what could be inherited. And that, in the end, was the victory that mattered most.